start. All right, the purpose of moon or sun journaling. And I'm going to skim through these fairly quickly, and then I will upload them into the Facebook group. And at some point, I'll do a proper video, or this video will be the one that's uploaded into the course. And if you've got this one, it's because it's got everything in it that we need. So the purpose of moon or sun journaling, the purpose of transit journaling is probably what this should be called. To discover the energy that we can access consistently from within and the energy we access inconsistently in response to the world around us. By exploring, experimenting, and reflecting on the energy that flows through us through the transits, we notice the contrasts of consistent versus inconsistent. So I'm going to steal Al's metaphor before, and I am going to give you credit for it, Al. The fish doesn't know that it's in water. And so our consistent energies are really hard for us to spot. I was reading a blog by someone the other day who it was titled, "Why I Don't Talk to My Kids About Human Design." We want to talk about a clickbait title. I'm like, oh, I'm going to click on that. And why don't we talk to our kids about human design? And she said one of the reasons she doesn't talk to her kids about human design is because they don't know conditioning yet. Her kids were 4 and 5, and there's a pretty picture of the body graphs up on the wall in her office, and they're framed and beautiful. And I, for a moment, contemplated doing that with my family and then thought that's going to be a waste of time. They don't know what it's like to be called on to access an inconsistent energy consistently. So for an example, one of my inconsistent energies is motivation. And yet the world insists that motivation should be consistent. And this push through and this drive. For me, it's not. And so recognizing that, but I can see that. I can see that motivation for me comes and goes. I'm starting to see some of the water that I live in that I see models appear on my windscreen. To me, I thought that was what everybody did. It's only in having conversations with other people who look at me and go, really? That's what happens in your mind? That I'm realizing it's not how everyone functions. So I'm seeing that, but that's a consistent energy for me. It's always there. If I want to access an acronym, if I want to access a model and the energy is in alignment for it, I can do that effortlessly. Motivation is not so effortless. So it's easier to see our inconsistencies than our consistencies, because we're fish in water, and we're going to be the last people to see the water, but we are going to see the inconsistencies. Is that making sense, guys? I just want to make sure that that's landing on some level. So the easiest way to discover who we are is to first look at who we are not. And I don't want this to become identity, but the easiest way for us to access the energy that is consistent is to look at the energy that is inconsistent. And the easiest way to do that is to leverage the transits. So as the moon or any celestial body moves through each gate, it activates an energy within the universe and us. Those energies that it activates allow us to access the inconsistent energy consistently for a time. So the moon moves through each gate, and it's about 10 to 12 hours that it's active in a gate. So it's easy to pick a day and go, okay, well, this is the gate that it's in today. I'm going to see how that feels. And tomorrow I'm going to see how I don't feel. So we get that contrast of yesterday I had this, today I don't. That's an inconsistent energy. Rather than waking up and going, today I have this, today I still have this, today I still have this, but I'm a fish swimming in water and I don't even realize that what I have. So the easiest thing is to notice what we don't have and notice those inconsistencies, and then notice what is consistent, what hangs around. Today I feel this, or yesterday I felt this, today I feel this. I don't feel X, I still feel Y. And then there's other transits in play and we can start to play with it. So the purpose of the moon journaling is to help us discover this. In the activation time, we can notice the energy flowing through us. And we notice it because of the contrast of it then not flowing through us. So it either wasn't. So yesterday I didn't feel this, today I do. That is an inconsistent energy. Tomorrow I don't. And I probably need to use days of the week rather than yesterday, today, and tomorrow, because my timelines are getting screwed in this. But I trust you guys are getting the message that's coming through in this.
So just so I see if I'm with landing. By using the gates and looking at the moon, so the gates tell us what's shifting with the moon when the moon's going through its cycles.
Yep.
And doing the journaling daily, right? So if I journal today by what is activated today through the gate for me,
yep.
And then say tomorrow that's no longer active, I can then journal, and in that comparison of today versus yesterday, that's where I identify, well, what's happening. Is that right? Then I can use that as the leverage as to, well, what do I do or not do?
And you'll get clear on the inconsistent energies. So our inconsistent energies are where we probably have the most conditioning. It's those things that there was one day where you were highly motivated. So for me, generally around ovulation, though at the moment it's not around ovulation, and I suspect I'm no longer menstrually aligned with the transits, which is what's stuffing me slightly. I am highly motivated. Like today, I shared with you guys earlier. Today, I got up, I did a call, I vacuumed the entire house with the robot vacuum cleaner rather than actively vacuuming it. I cleaned, so our cleaner is no longer working for us. So I did what the cleaner would have done, everything except mopping the floor. So I did an hour and a half of cleaning. I then wrote a webinar. I uploaded a lead magnet. I tweaked that based on mentor feedback. I did a call with them. I picked up the children from school. I like all of these things that I did. That for me is highly motivated. I don't expect to wake up that way tomorrow. That is an inconsistent energy for me. What is consistent is my drive for transformation. It doesn't matter what day, like I could be in bed paralyzed with depression, and I have been in bed paralyzed with depression. We're going back 14 years. Victoria was a baby. And in that moment, there was still this innate drive within, very much like you asked before, Frederick, how do I increase the spoons? My desire for transformation in that moment was still there. It doesn't matter how depressed I've got, how suicidal I've got, how down I've been, how exhausted I am. It doesn't matter. I still hold transformation as one of my key things. That is consistent from when I was tiny. And it's only that I see the contrast of me to others that I know that. So one of the pieces that we can look at is the transits and noticing the inconsistencies in us. And then we can compare ourselves to others, not from a judgmental space, simply from a, what do I have that others don't that is consistent for me, and tapping into that. The purpose of the transits is to notice the inconsistencies and notice the conditioning that we have around it. Yesterday, I was motivated. Today, I'm not. I feel shame, guilt, fear because I'm not living up to that should, except that now I don't. Now, with motivation, at least, there's other areas where I'm still deconditioning myself. Motivation, like, I'm just not motivated today. I'm going to have 3 naps today. And there is no shame, guilt, or fear. There's just, this is who I am, and I'm okay with it. I hold other gifts. My mere presence for my husband inspires him to transform. Just don't try and talk to him about it. Because all he needs is the presence. So through the activation, through the transits, whether you're using the sun or the moon, I recommend the moon because I am impatient. And the moon moves through all of the gates in 29 days. And so I can do 3 rounds of the moon in 90 days. The sun moves through all of the gates in a year. And I'm not patient enough to wait for a year. And I'm really not patient to wait for 3 years to have my 3-time convincer and challenge and check it strategy. Mercury does it in 88 days. So pick a time frame. So whether you want to do a month, whether you want to do 90 days or you want to do the year, there's a celestial body that will do that for you, because the sun technically isn't a planet. And someone criticized me on that the other day. You don't know what you're talking about. You called the sun a planet. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake, are you kidding me? So there's my disclaimer. The
Go
sun
fuck
is
yourself
in
is
my
my
world of
response to that
planet. What was that? Sorry, Christy.
one. Go fuck yourself would be my response to that one.
There was an element of that. And then there was also, okay, technically that's accurate. How do I find a word that, and celestial body is my, so go fuck yourself was said to the person, and celestial body is now said to other people before I get the criticism. All right, so consistent energy is found in the colored parts of our human design body graph. So this is the defined centers, the colored in geometric shapes, including the sideways square, otherwise known as a diamond, and the either the gates or the channels. The consistent energy is in the colored parts. That's the hardest part for us to discover because we're fish swimming in water, and as Al shared earlier, we can't see the water. Inconsistent energies allow us to feel the contrast between what is usually available from within and what is more sporadic. I've covered a lot of this. So when gates that are usually inconsistent are activated by a transit, we're able to notice the contrast of how the energy feels that it becomes consistent for a time.
So, quick question.
Yeah.
Or more affirming, if I've got this correct. When we're in the presence of someone who has their center, their gate consistent, I mean,
Yep.
like colored. Defined, yeah.
Defined or colored, all of that is accurate. Yep.
Then that can activate, that can make mine consistent. Is that
correct.
right?
Yes.
So if we're looking at, if you don't mind me using, Christy, when you were saying at the start, like a while ago, with the triathlon, because you were next to some, I don't know if hers was colored or not, but that's somebody that was there with you that you felt like you were doing it more. I mean, like you were more motivated because you've got that companion to do it with. But might not because it was colored.
Potentially. Yeah. One of the reasons I go for the transits rather than the people is the transits are clean. So people will come with their own conditioning and they will share their conditioning with us. And so people are, it sounds wrong, but people are not clean energy. They're conditioned energy.
Yeah.
Whereas the moon transits, the sun transits, the Mercury transits are all clean energy. Were you going to add something, Christy, just in feedback to Frederica around what she was noticing or something? I saw you came off mute.
So I was going to clarify, because there's, now I'm going to lose the word, the squares, they're the
geometric shapes, the centers. The
centers, right? So because Frederick's using gates and centers. So I've got a defined crown chakra, for example, and if memory serves, Al doesn't. But that my presence doesn't give him a defined crown chakras. It's more the gates that are activated. Is that accurate, or is it both accurate?
It's both is accurate.
Okay.
So let me finish this and then I'll come back to that so that I don't have to edit too much out of this recording. Remind me at the end. So yes, people will play this. The reason I choose to focus on the celestial bodies is because they are clean energy and we're then not reliant on another human. We can rely on something. So the moon is going to do its orbit pretty much like no matter what. Like there's things that could happen. There could be meteorites and the world is ending and all of that kind of exception stuff. Generally speaking, though, the moon is going to do its thing.
And this becomes irrelevant if the world's ended.
If the world's ended, then
the gates are the least of our problems.
The gates are the least of our problems. So generally speaking, we can rely on the moon and it's clean and we can follow that. We can rely on the sun. We can rely on Mercury to do its thing. And so the needing another person, and I'm all for needing other people. I'm all for creating interdependence. I have accountability buddies that I deliberately choose. I deliberately chose them and now I can see why based on their gates. So my accountability buddy that I'm meeting tomorrow morning has gate 56 and gate 16 and I love him. Like the energy that I have in his presence is delightful. The moons are better for, so when I'm with him, there's the energy in play, but there's also things like emotional bids, what's going on. There's too many other variables. Whereas tapping into the moon energy, we can do that in the same place, in the same way, without having the other person impact us. Does that make sense, Frederic? You are spot on that, yes, we can do it with people. So when the gates that are usually inconsistent are activated by a transit or a person, we're able to notice the contrast of how the energy feels as it becomes consistent for a time. The other thing with people versus planets is that the planets are going to be a certain time and we can schedule to it. People, we have to navigate around children and school and work and all of these other elements. So the reflection step 1. We're going to start by focusing on the gates that are hanging, the half channels, because these are the easiest ones for us to notice the difference with. So 1 + 1 = 3 in this instance. And we're going to see the difference. So when you get the hanging gates, and I'll show you examples of that in a second, we get the greatest energy surge. So the hanging gates are spotted easily as the green lines on your lunar calendar from Genetic Matrix. And here's one I prepared earlier. So this is mine, I believe. Though my screenshots the other day when I was creating the slides weren't on my favor. So on this one, we can see, so the orange channels, they are consistent for me. They're always there. They're worth tapping into, but it's the fish in water. The fish, how does the fish know that it's in water? Unless it's taken out of water, and we can't take ourselves out of this energy. You also can't take a fish out of water for particularly long either. We can't take ourselves out of this energy. This energy is innate within us. There is no taking us out of it. So what we can see instead are the green lines. So for example, gate 26, which is connecting the spleen to the ego, that was active for me all through December and January and into the first week of February. And I am noticing its absence. So I didn't notice it while it was here so much because I wasn't doing this before it was here. But now that it's gone, I notice its absence. So 26 and 16 both disappeared at about the same time. Now to distinguish between the two, I have to play a little bit more because 26 and 16 disappeared within a day or two of each other. So I don't know which one of them I'm noticing the absence of more. Though I do have people in my world that come with 16 and in their presence, there's elements that come back and there's elements that don't. So there's elements that don't, I associate with gate 26. It's a game of experimentation. So the easiest place to play is in the green lines. And this means you don't have to journal every day. So if we look at the 8th to the 14th of whatever month that is, February, the days for me to journal would be the 8th, the 9th, the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th. But the 10th and the 14th, I don't need to do any journaling. There's nothing, I mean, I can, but this is limiting it from it having to be a daily practice to it being a practice of just the green lines. And so depending on how many hanging gates you have will dictate how many green lines you have in I think it's a 30-day cycle that the moon moves through. Does that make sense, guys? So rather than it having to be every day, just as you notice the shift in energy, that's when to journal. Now, some of you are going to prefer to make it a lifestyle choice, that it is prompted by at 8 a.m. every morning, I get up and I journal, or at 3 a.m. every day, I get up and 3 p.m. or whatever it is, whatever time it is, not the point. So some of you are going to want to make it that consistent of this is when I do this every day. For others of us, we're going to do it more in response to, oh, I just noticed an energy shift. I'm going to capture that. Does that make sense, guys? So I want you to tap into what works better for you, the consistent do it daily, or the I noticed an energy shift. I'm going to pay attention to that and I'm going to write it down. And then I'm going to look at the transits and see what was happening. So I don't mind which way you do it. I don't mind whether you do it at all, to be quite frank, but you've got those options of don't bother because it doesn't entice you, it doesn't resonate with you, or do it when you notice the shift in energy, or set yourself an alarm on your phone with the reminder to do it 3 p.m. every day. It's your call. Or you could look through and you can set an alarm just for the days where that green line is active and the day before and the day after, if you wanted to. It's your call. Notice the influence that it has on you. Focus on the contrast that you feel or experience when the gate is active versus when it's not. So gates 35, 36, I am noticing. So I saw this one coming and I felt into the energy. So about a week before it came in for the 3-week period, it was here for a day. And the number of emotional conflicts that I had was off the scale. You guys will remember that day. We did it in 3P Club. And so I saw that, and then I had a week to not feel that, and then I've had 3 weeks to be back in it, and I'm leveraging it as a space of deconditioning because I realized I couldn't live that day consistently for 3 weeks. Like that was just going to create not so much hell for me, but hell for the people around me. And so tuning into that. So noticing that it here, and then it disappeared for a couple of days, and then it came back again. And so that was a really cool opportunity to explain. So you want to focus on the contrast that you feel or experience when the gate is active versus when it's not. I use the reflection question prompts as inspiration if you want. And then if you would prefer more time in the sun gate, you can also practice the sun reflection, and I'll upload the steps. I'm not going to go through them now in this. The steps are there. If you need help with that, bring it to a Q&A call if you're watching the recording, bring it to your one-on-one session if you're a VIP client, however you want to access that. You can also do it for Mercury. So the moon is a month, Mercury is 88 days, and the sun is 365 days. I can't remember if Venus sits in between the two of them. So work out the time frame you're looking for and play with that. And then step 2, you can start to explore the gates coming off your defined centers. Step 3, continue to explore any remaining yellow gates. So the yellow gates, if I just go back to that chart. So you can see here, there's the orange gates, and then the yellow gates are the ones activated by the moon. So any of those left over by the time you've done your hanging gates, and then the other ones, then any leftover yellow gates, play with those. And then, of course, bring any questions, observations, anything you want to share to the weekly Q&A calls for those of you watching the recording. I'm going to stop the recording and we're going to do exploration together, but I just wanted to capture that for the course. And I think this video, so if you're watching this video, I decided at the end of this that was good enough, and we went through all the slides and I stayed on topic for a change, and you can have this video. So enjoy, and yeah, by all means, bring any observations, any questions, anything you want to share to the weekly Q&A calls.